The story continues on Stark Island. Iron Man manages to take a sample of Teen Abomination's blood, which sends the teenager into a fury. Tony manages to stop him and calm the troubled boy down. He uses the blood to begin an analysis of the young man, whose real name is Jamie. As the machines begin to process the young abomination's altered DNA, Stark pours himself a drink, lays back, and asks Jamie to explain how he got his powers. The boy begins to talk about his mother. She was a scientist at Stark Industries experimenting on gamma radiation. During one testing phase, she could not find a babysitter and was forced to bring Jamie, who was then only a boy, to the facility. Tony Stark was too busy at the time to observe the experiment, and instead, his right-hand man at the time, Happy Hogan, was brought in to watch the test being carried out. The experiment failed spectacularly, and a massive explosion of gamma radiation occurred. 2 people were badly injured, while Jamie was unknowingly mutated into the Teen Abomination. Tony remembers this incident and notes that it happened 8 years ago. Stark remembers that he wasn't off partying when all this happened, but rather he was in a fight against the villain known as Black Llama. This bad guy corrupted Tony Stark's mind and nearly drove him into insanity. Tony was able to overcome the attack and defeat the villain. He remembers how this incident almost killed him, and he barely made it home alive. As he talks about this, Tony is disturbed to realize that he can't remember what happened next. Stark then asks Jamie when he first discovered his powers, to which the boy explains that 2 weeks ago, he came home with bruises after being bullied. When confronted about this by his mother, the boy grew frustrated, and as a result, he first transformed, leveling the house around them in the process. Tony states that this explains why he can't change back into a human. His transformation is brought on by anger, just like the Hulk, and after what Jamie did, well, he's going to be angry at himself for a very long time. The machine is finally able to finish analyzing Jamie's blood. It confirms the identity of Jamie's mother and reveals that his father is Happy Hogan. Shocked and knowing that his best friend died years ago, Tony decides that he must help his longtime friend's only son and swears he will find a way to reverse this transformation. Later that night, Tony begins to look into his armor footage from the day the Black Llama attacked him. He realizes that somebody erased an entire day of his life following this event, and begins to investigate who could do such a thing. Stark then has a meeting with an American general and a scientist. He has developed plans for a new major weapon and is offering to sell it to the military. The scientist is disgusted at the nature of these plans, but Tony shows them that there are 2 other envelopes with the same schematics on them, one in Chinese and the other in Russian. The government is forced to buy the plans, and we then cut to Resilient headquarters. This is a company that Tony started years ago after temporarily losing control of Stark Industries. They did well, and it is now run by Pepper Potts. Deep underground, a mysterious figure in armor is watching over Tony Stark. The person notes that $200 billion just got deposited in the Stark Industries bank account, and the armor figure knows exactly what Tony is planning to do with all this money. We then cut to New York City, where Tony is having a meeting with a major media company. As a superhero, Tony never really had to worry about his image. The people would adore him no matter what happened. But now Stark has plans for major changes to the world, and he is expecting resistance. So Tony needs the media to win the hearts and minds of the general public. The company's owner is furious and refuses to sell, calling in security. The guards shoot at Jamie, but immediately regret that decision as the boy is completely immune to their bullets. In the chaos, Tony activates his symbiotic armor and threatens to kill or fire the remaining security guards. But Stark didn't count on one thing. Pepper Potts enters the room and reveals that the media company has already been sold to Resilient. Tony is furious, and the 2 agree to meet in private later to discuss this further. At Resilient headquarters, Pepper has all the employees leave. She insists that Tony abandon his armor as she is scared of the symbiote and what it can do. He complies, and the three enter an elevator. Inside, Tony introduces Pepper to Teen Abomination. He explains that Jamie is Happy's son, and considering how Pepper Potts was once married to Happy, this makes Potts Jamie's stepmother, and only living relative. She is surprised at this and apologizes to Jamie before flying out of the elevator. Tony realizes this is a trap, but it is too late. The doors open, and the armored figure charges Teen Abomination, knocking the boy unconscious, but losing his mask in the process. Tony demands to know who this armored figure is, so it introduces himself as Tony Stark. The superior Iron Man realizes that after his encounter all those years ago, Tony created a backup of his mind in case he were ever corrupted. He then wiped his memory of the event, and Pepper, seeing that Tony has become dangerous and reckless, activated the backup program. The armor then reveals his plans to either cure the corrupted Tony or, if necessary, replace him, wiping out everything that happened to Stark in the last 8 years. Tony is amused by this and points out the symbiotic armor is upstairs and will be here to fight very soon. So the armor forcibly surrounds Tony and begins to fly away. The symbiote gives chase, and the two armors fly high into space. Without oxygen, the suit is easy to defeat. The armor then takes Tony to a space station owned by Resilient, where it enters Tony's mind. But a part of the symbiote has also come on board, and it manages to disable the armor long enough for Tony to escape. Now free, Stark returns to Earth and announces a party on his island. Meanwhile, the backup is able to take control of another of Tony's old suits, over in Resilient headquarters. The two versions of Stark begin to plan for their fight with one another, and the next day, the armor goes to confront his corrupted self. On the island, Tony reveals his plans, a special biological weapon that takes over the minds and bodies of human beings. Using this weapon, Tony has created a literal human shield to protect himself. But the armor has his own plans, as an army of Tony's old suits arrive on the scene. These armors are able to rescue the civilians that Tony was using for protection, and a battle begins between the two versions of Tony Stark. Frustrated, Tony upgrades his symbiote suit. He tears most of the armors apart with ease, until a Hulkbuster is able to knock him into the Golden Gate Bridge. He is outraged at both the cliche of fighting on this bridge and another attacker, Pepper Potts, who is wearing a brand new suit of armor herself. He destroys the Hulkbuster, but Pepper is able to use the massive sonar attack to disable the symbiote. She takes Tony prisoner and brings him back to Resilient headquarters. But Tony still has plans of his own, and he is able to covertly activate a USB device that contains a virus. This program begins to systematically wipe out the backup from Resilient's computers. The program is forced to escape onto a USB device that Tony has, which he will hold on to in quarantine. Realizing that Tony has truly fallen, Teen Abomination pins Stark down and takes the USB back by force. Outraged, Tony has the symbiotic suit appear and destroy the USB, killing the backup of Stark's mind permanently. Teen Abomination gets ready for a fight, so Tony simply stops him by revealing that Jamie's mother is alive and well and in the care of a nearby hospital. Hearing this, Jamie finally reverts back to a normal boy. Pepper tries to stop Tony, only for him to reveal that her sonar attacks have no effect on him. He simply used that old weakness as a trick to let him get past Resilient's firewalls and destroy the backup of his mind. As Tony gets ready to leave, Pepper apologizes. This is everything that Tony feared would happen one day, and she failed to stop it. She's going to have to accept that Stark is gone. And if she can't save her former employer, then at least she can save the world from what he's become. Pepper vows to use the media company she just bought to make sure everybody knows that Tony Stark has turned into a monster. She'll expose the biological weapons, the extremist drug, and anything else that Stark might be up to. She'll take away everyone who ever admired the man. She'll drain him of any respect he once had, and will ensure the man doesn't have a friend left in this world. As Tony returns home, crowds already look on him, not with admiration, but disgust. He sits in his headquarters, broken, unloved, and completely alone. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my recap and review of Superior Iron Man, issues number 5 to 9. So by popular demand, I've decided to go over the rest of the Superior Iron Man series, following up on the first 4 issues I covered all the way back in January. And with 9 coming out this week as the last issue in the series, it felt like a natural time to do this. Some of our more dedicated viewers will no doubt remember that I was pretty down on the first 4 issues of this series. But looking back over them, having read all 9 issues now, I am feeling a lot more charitable towards this series as a whole. The art was really well done, and we got some excellent writing. We got to see some great character moments between the old and new Tony Stark, and an excellent action scene where Tony battles all his old armors in one big awesome fight. This story also works to distance itself from the Superior Spider-Man quite nicely in these latter 5 issues, and in the end it went in a really unexpected direction. The ending also serves to explain quite nicely why everybody hates Tony Stark so much in the Time Runs Out event, which takes place after the events of Superior Iron Man. So it was quite good overall, and on the whole, I do recommend you check out the series for yourself if an evil version of Iron Man does sound interesting to you. But that also is the biggest problem with this story. You guys remember that Age of Ultron movie that came out recently? Well, one thing I was thinking when I was watching that movie, aside from how awesome it was how nice it was to have a Tony Stark I could actually root for. Yeah, I don't know why the comics are so rough on this character, but I really miss the days when Tony was actually likable in these stories. I feel like ever since the Civil War, Tony is all too often just a jerk in the comics. Rarely do we get a break from this norm, with the possible exception of Matt Faction's pretty good run with the character during the Dark Reign era. So while I enjoyed the Superior Iron Man on the whole, I can't help but yearn for the days of a Tony Stark I actually like. Hopefully post-Secret Wars, Iron Man becomes closer to that character who I really enjoy. Somebody who might be a little morally ambiguous at times, but is always a hero at his core. I'd love to see more of that if possible, and hope this is the new direction they take Tony's character. Because for now, well, there's really only so much of an evil Tony Stark I can handle before the whole thing just gets too dumb and out of character for me to enjoy. But maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.